The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Shepard Smith, Head of Marketing here at Gravitate, and I'd like to thank you all for joining us today. The topic of today's conversation is engaging and supporting chapters with data analytics. And while we have quite a bit to discuss, we welcome questions and invite you to submit them at any time using the written chat function on the right-hand side of your screen. Everyone in the audience is muted, and we'll be sending all of you a link to a recording of this webinar afterwards. Our presenter today is Rob Miller. Rob is a CAE who many of you know both as a Senior VP at the trade association 340B Help and as president and co-founder of Avectra, the company that invented the modern web-based AMS with the launch of NetForum. Rob asked to be introduced today as a data evangelist because he's that excited about today's topic. Rob, I'll now turn the conversation over to you.
Great, thank you, Shepard, and welcome everyone. You know, I have to be honest with you. I'd like to say that I'm dressed in a suit and my hair is short, as it is in this picture, but I'm actually, after we've all been home for 5 or 6 months, I'm a lot shaggier and I'm certainly not dressed as well. But I can promise you I'm still in Gravitate Blue. So again, welcome everyone. I'm really excited about this topic of chapters. Our philosophy at Gravitate is data analytics for everyone. And so when we say everyone, we're extending it from your staff to your chapters. So it's all the way through the whole system, the whole organization of that has chapters. So we believe chapters stay more connected when their association knows them better. And why is that? It's because when you know them better, you communicate with them about the things they care about the most. You offer them benefits that they're most interested in. And when you become really good at it, you start to anticipate their needs. But what are the challenges that are preventing you from knowing your chapters better? We did some surveys late last year from a bunch of associations, and this is what we heard. We heard silos and integrations. We heard duplicate and inaccurate data. There was challenges with management buy-in. These are probably challenges that you are having at your own organization. I'm sure you recognize some of them. Probably the funniest answer we got was a woman said to us that her data challenge was Steve, which we thought was really a hoot. I think we've all had a Steve in our lives, and I thought it was fun to leave it on the list. So how well do you know your chapter members? Is it somewhat or is it intimately? And how do you currently make decisions, gut feeling or with confidence? We help you understand your chapter's members intimately and make decisions with confidence. So our goal is to help you know your chapters better, and how do we do that? So first of all, we make analytics available to everyone. And as I said, it's not just for your staff, but it's also including providing access to your chapters. We provide exceptional member insight. We simplify the complexity of the data. The system provides actionable next steps. And we actually identify bad data, transform and improve it when we bring it into Nucleus. So what should be your expected outcomes when you implement Nucleus? First of all, from the association's perspective, you should have a trusted data source. And this data is coming from all your different sources, such as your AMS, your community, your email system, Google Analytics. If you have an LMS, any of these types of systems, we pull it in and we blend that data together and we prove it so that you really trust it. And through that, we improve your efficiency because now you're reporting on all the data across all your systems, which really helps you make educated decisions. Your chapter members, on the other hand, will achieve surprise and delight because they will see that you understand them better. You'll be serving them up the types of things they care about, and you'll actually be providing them information. And through that, we expect you'll get more engagement, more loyalty, and hopefully more wallet share. So today, I'm going to be showing you a variety of visualizations in Nucleus. And they can be separated into 3 different types, the ones that are informative, insightful, and predictive. So an example of an informative visualization is chapter retention history. So essentially, at a quick view, we can tell that the retention history of this particular chapter is going up. So just very quick, very informative. An example of one that's insightful is this particular one, which is email fatigue. This is telling us how many emails that we sent each of our members in each of our chapters. And through that, you can make an assessment of whether you're emailing people too often. And then the most sophisticated type of visualization that we have in Nucleus is predictive types. An example of that would be a renewal predictor that we have in our system of the probability that your chapters will renew. Your chapter members will renew. So we have mechanisms to do projections and predictions in the system, which can be very valuable. And through those insightful and predictive capabilities in particular, Nucleus provides actionable recommendations. Now, we also should believe that the system should have no limits for you. I talked about the system being available. So first and foremost, it's available to all your staff. We sell it on a site license, so every single one of your staff can use the system to do the type of analysis that they want to do. But we extend it to boards, to committees, to chapters, so that you can make the system available to those folks so that they can actually see their own data. And you can set up specific visualizations just for them, and through our role-based security, you can limit what they get to see. You can also make it available to your members or subscribers through embedding in your website. We, of course, have many pre-built integrations. We have connections to Power BI and Tableau, and we have a great deal of flexibility in the system, and I will show you at the very end our self-service visualization builder. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch over to a demonstration of Nucleus. So if you just give me a second. Okay, so what I'm in now is I'm in our Nucleus system. And the first thing I'm going to show you is essentially a test site that we have, just so you can get a feel for how the software works. And what I want to show you is there's only about 6 or 7 things that any person needs to know how to do to use the system. The first thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to decide on which carousel of information you want to look at. So I just switched from membership to events and now back to membership. And we call it a carousel because you can scroll right and left like you're going around a carousel to look for the type of information that you want to investigate. So that's really the first thing you need to know how to do. The next thing that you want to do then is once you decide on a particular data card you want to look at, you're going to drill into that information. And when you do that, you're going to see more information. In this case, now we've broken membership up by section, by type, by generation, by tenure. And then we also have filters on the right side of the screen that can allow you to further drill into the information. So maybe I'm only going to look at records in a certain tenure range, as well as maybe the Generation X and the millennials. As you can see, what happens is as I build that filter set, it expands on the top so you know where you are. So all of these charts now are being displayed based on those filters. Now, the next thing you may want to do is you may actually want to look at the data. And so all the data that's been filtered on now will appear in this data screen. And this works a lot like Excel. You can move fields around. You can, sort the list. You could add additional filters. Very, very easy to work with. And also you can get the data out. So you can download this data to CSV or JSON. So if you wanted to do more analysis with, say, Excel or another data analytics tool, you can do that. So those are the things, primary things that most users would want to do. Now, there's one last thing I wanted to point out, which is you can also print to PDF. So I created all of those visualizations with those particular filters, and so I just ran that to PDF, and I'll show that to you. Now you can see those charts, they're in PDF. There's our filters still appearing, and of course now I could email this to somebody, I could save it, I could share it. And for me, when I was working in an association, this was very valuable to me because it made it very easy to create our board books. Because in any board book, you always want to have some charts and graphs, and so this eliminated all the pain of downloading from the AMS and getting in Excel and then PowerPoint and so forth. So very quick and easy. Okay, so let's keep going. So that really is the highlights of how you would operate with Nucleus. So let's start getting into some chapter examples. So I'm going to come over to this other system. So quickly, what I want to do is I want to mention the system is set up two ways. One, from a perspective of the national office looking at the chapter data. And the second is the chapters themselves accessing the system and just looking at their data. So the first thing I want to do is show you information related to what you might be able to look at when you're, as a national office, is looking at chapters. So, you know, you got members the last 3 years, you got members by chapter, the top 5 chapters, that is, you got membership renewal, a bunch of different information. You know, chapter members by state, all very, very interesting. So let's drill into one of these, members by chapter in the top 5. And so when I do that, so now I am gone into a lower level of that, and as you can see, this is increased. And I'm looking at this. This is members by chapter name, dues revenue by chapter name, and then a whole series of other pieces of information. So, of course, you might want to say, well, I'm actually really interested in that, but I'm only interested in it from, say, a particular generation. So this is where the filters become very interesting. Also, you might just simply be wanting to look at a particular chapter itself. So I'm going to go to chapter name, and maybe I want to look at, say, Atlanta, Austin, Boston, and Chicago. So now I'm just studying the data from the perspective of those 4 chapters. Now I know how many members there are. I know what the dues revenue is. And of course, the dues here shows at the chapter level. You know, we can look at the breakdown between those, and we can look at the trends over the years of how these particular groups grew. So you can see if they're trending in the right direction, the wrong direction. Obviously, none of the organizations have completed their 2020 renewals, so obviously those numbers are a little low right now. But gives you a sense of the types of things, and of course, I could go also explore the data. So I could look specifically at the data if I wanted to. So let's jump back up to the top level again. And this time, let's look at renewal rates. This is always something everybody cares about tremendously. What are the renewal rates for our chapters? And of course, you can see that there's a nice growth in this of the eligible to renew as well as the renewed. What's the overall renewal rate? Same thing from a revenue perspective. You know, we always like to look at things both in terms of counts and revenue. And again, while I'm here, I could filter on a particular chapter, 1 or more chapters. So maybe I just want to look at, in fact, I'm going to show you a little trick here. I can do a type ahead, because if this was a really, really long list, that's what you would want to do. So I'm just going to, like, say, look at Boston here. And so now I'm just looking at the data. Boston, as we can see, is kind of flatlined in the last 5 years. So we might need to determine what's going on, you know, with them. So you can really look and see what's going on. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I want to look at this data from the perspective of the chapter now. So now you have to, like, visualize for a moment that most of these menus go away, and the only thing a chapter would see is their own self. But as the national office, you can see them all. So this is one particular chapter's data grouped together in all these nice data cards. So the number of chapters, how many of the last 3 years, what's the renewal rate, what states that the chapters are in, that type of thing. And as you can see right now, we're just looking at Atlanta. So at the national office level, they can change which chapter they're looking at. So let's go look at Boston again. And but if the chapter officers from Boston logged in, the only thing that they would see is these data cards and these scrollers, because they wouldn't be able to get to the other chapters. So it's really nice for making this available. So and the question is, how do we do that? So we have role-based security in the system so that we can control what part of the system you can see. So based on that role-based security, there's menu items that will disappear. There's we can add filters or we can remove filters depending on what you want your chapters to see. So it's very easy to do that. It's just a configuration. We're not talking about customizations here. Okay, so I'm going to jump over to another site that has implemented a couple of different things that I find interesting. One of the things I want to mention is this particular client had just a key indicators carousel. We like to call that the best of. So they're showing their professional development, their subscriptions, and their page views on their website, and so forth and so on. But this group also, they have chapters. Now they call them regions in their terminology. So one of the things that they had was goals by region. Now this is as you can see, this is one single data card. This is the only thing, well, it's one of two things that they actually showed their chapters. Whereas you saw the first slide I showed had a whole bunch. They wanted to show this, and then there's one other that I'll show you. But again, it's broken out by particular region, another name for a chapter type. So as you can see, these chapters would be able to see how they're performing against their goal. And the other thing that they let the region see was this particular view. So they would let their regions also see this. So they would actually be able to see how they were performing against their goal, but they also showed it how all the other chapters, regions in this case, performed against their goal, because what they were trying to do is they were trying to gamify the registration activities, and they actually had a great deal of success with it. And on a year-over-year perspective, from 2018 to 2019, they were to 2020, they were able to increase their registration by about 30% because their chapters were competing with one another, which is a great problem to have. So let's back up here a little bit, and let's go back to this. We're in an event carousel, and this is, again, we're kind of looking at this from the national level. And I'm going to go into this registrant by revenue in the last 3 years, because what I want to show is that once you have the chapters or regions set up in your system, they become filters that can be used anywhere else. So whether you're looking at membership data, registration data, certification data, suddenly this region becomes very interesting. So right now in this particular view, I'm looking at the weeks out registrant report over 3 years, but across the entire organization. And the nice thing is they've had nice growth all the way along. They could always tell that the registration was always running ahead of the prior year, which is what you want to see in a weeks out. But of course, maybe they want to look at it for just one particular region. So now they can look at this Abe Lincoln region, and they actually, more interestingly enough, their 2019 and 2020 were much closer. And at one point in time, it looked like they might have fallen behind, but then at the very end, 2020 came out the highest. So the thing, once you have these chapters and regions in, you can use that as a filter throughout the whole system, which makes things very, very valuable. Okay, so I want to carry that a little bit further. They did some other things, such as email marketing. They pulled in data from their email marketing tool, and they can look at things like the number of sent messages, what messages were sent, mailing rates, opens, deliveries, that type of thing. So we can explore that, and again, we're looking at this at the total organization level. But again, of course, we can go and look at it from a couple of regions. So as well as any of the other filters that they think are important when they're looking at this mailing data. And back up here, same thing as it works for web tracking. If you had data coming from, say, Google Analytics, and then also if you happen to have a community, like they're running a community from that where folks are able to post messages. And so this is a great opportunity, so you can actually study the type of activity. These are posts and replies that happen in their community. And of course, lo and behold, here we have again, we've got things where we can look at things by region. So now we're going to look at these posts and replies by region. And this time, though, we want to look at the data, and we want to say, what is it that these groups have been talking about? What is the community that they were showing the most interest? And by me pulling this thing over here, we can see where most of their posts were going. So obviously, if we studied this data, we would be able to determine for the region of Abe Lincoln and maybe for a particular membership tenure. You know, we only want to look at it for the first 4 years of tenure, because what we really care about are the newest members in that region. And what are they talking about? Because we may want to come up with some sessions at our future conference. We may want to offer some webinars on these topics that are of most interest to these particular folks. What you're seeing when I'm doing this is you're seeing the power of blended data. So we're essentially taking data that's in their association management system. That's where all your names and addresses and your membership and your event registration all takes place. But then we're blending it with you know, data in your email marketing tool. We're blending it with data within your community, and through that, you have a lot more power and a lot more insight into what's going on. Okay, so I have 2 more things that I want to show you. It's going a little bit beyond the chapter management, but it wants to show you a little more capability. So what I wanted to show you first was basically as a community service effort, we created a whole COVID site for our clients to use to help them from a decision perspective when they were first of all, when this terrible virus originally hit. And so we created a whole site with all different kinds of data. And the reason why I wanted to show you this particularly is I wanted you to see that, you know, you saw me moving through data cards, you know, kind of from left to right in the carousel format, but we can also do a more traditional, you know, executive dashboard if this is the way you like to see the information. And in fact, our developers were really crafty, because when they built this, if you shrink this down to the size that would fit on a phone, it orients itself back to the original carousel version, so you're seeing one data card at a time. So it's very responsive. Now, using this particular dashboard, remember, we're looking at COVID data now. We're looking at, you know, testing trends and meetings that were impacted and infection rates and data that's unstructured data coming from various other sources. We basically pulled all this data from Johns Hopkins and the Breakthrough Healthcare and a few others. But what I wanted to show you here was that I want to show you our capability to create your own visualization. So I'm going into basically the SelfService tool. So this is a page that was created with the SelfService tool, and this page has 3 charts on it. And I'm going to go into edit mode, and you'll see now I am now editing the page itself. So I could change the title of the page, I could change the layout of the page, I could move things around, I could add another chart. I also could edit the filters that are going to be available for the users when they actually run this. And these changes are all happening to all the pages. If I wanted to just change one chart, I would actually go into edit mode on that chart. And now what I can do is I can say, okay, right now we're at a double bar and we're going to want to change it to a different style. So we've got the most popular types of chart types that you'd want, you know, donuts, lines, bars, double bars, that type of thing. And again, once you get this the way you want, you go to the data tab, and then you can decide on what filters you want your users to be able to access. When you set up the charts, you also then pick what are the metrics. You know, do you want labels turned on and off? You know, do you want things to be multicolored, or you want it just to be one color? You know, you can change these things and make them available throughout the whole thing. Okay, so I'm going to back out of here because I'm starting to wrap up. I want to save a little bit of time for Shepard. So just before I turn over the questions to him, just to wrap up this particular piece, the idea here is that if there's a particular chart or graph that we have not created in our baseline system and you wanted to create one yourself because you had some new idea, you can do that with the SelfService tool, and it's very easy to do. Okay, Shepard, what questions do we have?
Thanks very much, Rob. We have several. The first question relates to pricing. It says, do we have to purchase licenses for each chapter?
No, that's a great question. So if you remember, our philosophy is data analytics for everyone. And so we sell the product on a site license. So that then covers all your staff, but it also reaches beyond your staff to your chapters, to your board members, essentially anyone that you grant and deem, should have access to data. And then through our role-based security tool, you can then decide on what exactly in Nucleus that they can see, whether it's certain links, certain pages, certain menu items. It's very flexible.
I think the second question flows well into that. It says, how do I control which chapter has access to which data?
Yeah, and so that's the role-based access. So what you probably would do is you would create a carousel similar to this, where you say, I'm going to create a carousel for the chapters, and then you would, first of all, you'd set on role-based access so that they could only see that one carousel, and then further you would specify that they could only see their own data.
Next question. Can I share these charts and graphs with others, example, staff or board members?
Sure. Well, there's two ways to do that. I think I hit on both of those during the presentation. The first one was when you're after you've done all the types of filtering and you've studied the data, you can go down and you can hit this button of print to PDF. You can save it to your desktop, and then you can email that to anyone that you want. But also, because it's analytics for everyone, again, through the role-based security, you could create a special group just for a subset, and then give them a login and let them go look for themselves.
Terrific. Any other questions, anyone? Here, right now. Other departments. It says essentially the question is, are there capabilities for departments like events or marketing?
Good. So obviously we had our attention focused on chapters today, but I did briefly touch on a few other capabilities in the system. I dropped into email marketing, I dropped into the community, but we essentially have a package which may have one-to-many carousels for each department. So there's ones for membership, there's ones for events, there's ones for fundraising, certification. It just goes on and on and on. We pretty much have built one for every department, and then we have those special cross-department ones like email marketing and web tracking and things that would kind of impact all of those. So they're all listed on our website, so I encourage you to go take a look because they specify exactly which ones we have.
All right, well, it looks like we're coming to the end of our time and should wrap up. Thank you, Rob, and thank you everyone for joining us. As a next step, we have a couple of options. First, Rob is available to schedule a conversation to discuss exactly what might be helpful at your organization. We'll be sending a follow-up email to each of you, and it will contain a scheduling link, so please take advantage of that. Also, we have 4 new executive briefs on data analytics for associations on our website. It's nucleusanalytics.com. If you click the resources tab, there's an overall analytics success kit where you'll find these briefs along with much more. We will now end the webinar. Everyone have a fantastic rest of your day.